Well, hello from Las Vegas and welcome to week 5 of Beat the Odds. Today, we're going to celebrate tall, skinny guys. Jaden Daniels, stud. Jared Goff, stud. Arteta, a stud. It's a studly edition of Beat the Odds, and it starts right now.
From our Las Vegas studios, this is Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, and powered by Sports Grid.
All right, here we go. Welcome inside our Las Vegas studio. I'm Dave Hall.
And I'm Mariah Janos. Through 4 weeks of pro football, we have studs, duds, and the thud of Jacksonville being the only winless team. It's still chaos throughout the league with upsets everywhere.
Yeah, now one team is already so desperate they actually called Fat Jack and begged him to stop picking them for his best bet.
Oh, wow.
Just kidding, Jack. We love you, buddy. You know that. We kid because we love. Well, coming up on today's show, the boys will tell us which dogs could be barking this week, our player prop showdown, and yes, Jack, your best bets.
Plus, a lot of talk here in Las Vegas about Davante Adams. We'll talk with Brandon Marshall about the fallout of this potential blockbuster move. Our friends from Sports Grid are back too.
Hey Vegas, we're excited to beat the odds with you guys once again. Coming up, Joe Lisi and I will try and figure out if Josh Allen can bounce back against Houston and if Justin Fields' big performance will hold with a huge matchup against Dallas on deck. Sit tight. We'll join you in a bit. Back to the crew out in Vegas.
All right, back with the tall stud.
Thank you.
And Jack is here too.
I don't know whether I'm more irritated by the stud tall comment or the fact that you don't appreciate my 18-8 over 2 seasons. I mean, this is a marathon and not a sprint, as a lot of regular gamblers are finding out right now.
You know I kid because I love.
Oh, I know. Listen, I shake it off and move on to the next.
That's right.
I feel like a stud.
Well,
Good start.
Hey!
And part of the challenge of gambling these days is all the shockers and stunners we see every week, Teddy.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you want to talk shockers from last week? How about if you had Dallas minus 5.5 against the G-Men? They're up by 5. They're going to kick the field goal to go up by 8. Aubrey had been 16 of 16 from 50 plus. Well, now he's 16 of 17 from 50 plus. Dallas wins by only 5. Tough beat if you had them minus the points on Thursday night. Houston minus 5.5 against Jacksonville wasn't a whole lot better. Houston muffed a punt, gifted a touchdown. They had so many games called back by penalties, it's hard to describe them all. And of course, no safety on what sure looked like a safety on the last play of the game. Houston wins by only 4. Buffalo-Baltimore, over 47. Let's see, we had a missed field goal from Bass, and then 5 empty possessions. It was such a big blowout. The final possessions was Buffalo trying to run out the clock instead of trying to score. Tough if you had that over. But the worst one of the weekend, Miami, Tennessee under 37. A new rule off of a safety, and the punt after the safety results in 1st and goal. And how about this? The coach for Tennessee said, well, that play's kind of like taking a knee because we didn't think he was going to score. Oops. Final touchdown gets punched in. Unders do not cash. That was tough if you had that.
Yeah, rock bottom was not pretty for the guys on that side. I had Jacksonville, so I was perfectly happy with the forward momentum there at the end. I did not even get in the end zone. The other things, you talk about, if you're one of those guys that bets with the general public, you got absolutely hammered last week. And actually overall, 51% of the money is only hitting 35% of the time against the spread. So anybody, if you're following your buddies up to the window, that has not been the way to make money, especially in professional football.
We had some stunners too, Ted.
Oh, yeah, we always got stunners. And last week, let's see, we start with Gangrene. Flat as a pancake. Denver comes to town, wins outright as 8.5-point dogs. Another missed field goal, a key factor in that ball game. KC with the late touchdown. Not much offense in that ball game, but it ends up landing right in the middle line bounce. 6.5, 7.5. Is Herbert playing? Isn't? That was a bad game for the books. And the underdogs just keep on not just cashing, winning outright. Indy, Tampa, Minnesota, and Vegas all went outright as underdogs.
Yeah, nobody's crying for the books for sure. So the Kansas City, that was a little bit back. The question is, how do we proceed? Right? I mean, we can only look back so much. Now we've got to turn the corner. Can we take advantage of some of these trends that have been over the top so far this season?
And maybe we'll realize Minnesota isn't an underdog and they're actually a really good football team this year.
To be determined.
All right, TBD. Well, we have our first London game this week. In fact, Jack's heading to the airport soon. Now we can watch football for like 15 hours on Sunday. Mariah is at the Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas, with more on that.
Thanks, Dave. I'm here with EVP of Superbook Operations, Jay Cornegay. Jay, we've got ourselves an international game this week in London. How do neutral sites like that impact the spread?
Well, not as much as they used to. In the old days, the home field advantage was worth anywhere from 3 to 3.5 points. In today's world, it's only worth about 1.5 points, and mainly because the travel is so much easier for the players than it used to be.
Speaking of what could move the needle for lines, I want to talk about injuries. Obviously, in a situation like Miami, no Tua with a quarterback out, that's going to impact lines more drastically. But looking at a situation like Kansas City, no Rashee Rice, one of their top receivers, do receivers move the needle at all?
Not too much. When you look at the receivers, only the elite receivers would have an impact on the line. And no disrespect to Rice, but in this case, this injury, it won't have an impact on the line.
And heading into the weekend, any early action that you're seeing?
We have received a lot of early action, all coming out of the AFC North. Baltimore has been getting some attention. Cleveland, the 3.5s are all gone. And Pittsburgh as well. Pittsburgh has received some action against Dallas. So that's a little surprising to me. I expect some Dallas money to come in later in the week, but right now it's all Pittsburgh.
All right, Jay, thank you so much. Dave, we'll send it back to you in studio.
All right, thanks, guys. Up next, Teddy is talking those rookie quarterbacks, the studs and the duds, plus the underdogs are crushing it right now. Jack found 2 games this week he likes more than a big old plate of pancakes.
Before we take our first time out, with an 87-yard touchdown run on Sunday, Baltimore running back Derrick Henry tied the record for most 70-plus yard rushing touchdowns in league history with 7. What 2 players is he now tied with? The answer coming up next.
Beat the Odds is sponsored by Superbook Westgate, Las Vegas, and powered by Sports Grid.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you, with an 87-yard touchdown run on Sunday, Baltimore running back Derrick Henry tied the record for most 70-plus yard rushing touchdowns in league history with 7. Which 2 players is he now tied with? The answer, Adrian Peterson and Chris Johnson, both had 7 rushing touchdowns of 70-plus yards during their careers. All right, let's welcome in our guy, Brandon Marshall. And we talked about Vegas last week. We're going to start with them again because despite getting a win, bouncing back after Carolina, they're back in the headlines, and it's about Davante Adams, the team announcing that they are exploring trade options. He is one of their franchise players. Is this the right move?
This is the right move because they didn't do right by Davante. You know, he came here for his buddy, Derek Carr. They got rid of him. They didn't replace him with anybody that was serviceable, and he knows they're not going to go to the big game in the near future. So why waste the last of his good years in Las Vegas? Send him out, get some good draft capital, maybe a good couple players back. That's probably Las Vegas's best move.
Now, if you're a player in that locker room, though, how distracting is news like this when you know that this trade could be in the works? You still have to go out there and perform, and you know you might be losing one of your best players.
I mean, it is distracting because at the end of the day, now you kind of look at the front office and say, okay, you know, are we trying to win now? Like, what are we doing here, right? So I'm pretty sure now all the players know that, okay, clearly we're not going to go to the playoffs. Clearly the front office management, they're not trying to win today. So let me get my stats, right? Let me try to get my money. You know, we're still going to play as a team. We're still going to try to win games. But at the end of the day, we understand what the agenda is. We know that we're not going to go far this year because they're trading our best player. So it is what it is.
Well, with that, rumor mill goes where Davante wants to go. There's rumors that he wants to go reunite with Aaron Rodgers in New York. It seems like that would be a strong fit because you can just pick up where you left off mid-season. Do you think that would be the right move for him or the best available?
Yeah, I think it'll be a good move. You know, Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett, you know, a similar or the same system that he was in with Green Bay. You know, and then they'll have 4 good receivers, right? You know, Garrett Wilson, Adam Lazard, Mike Williams, right? So they have 4 guys that can go catch the ball for Aaron Rodgers, right? And that's what they need because their defense is solid. They need a little more potency on offense. They have Breece Hall, but if you add Davante Adams in the mix, I think they'll be creeping up the top of the AFC.
Yeah, that's a real nice offense there. All right, it's been a heck of a run so far for the underdogs. Jack, you have 2 more that could be barking this week. What you got?
Yeah, I'm excited for Brandon to show up at Denny's and have the quarterback room for Las Vegas also show up and him say, "Well, you guys are all not even serviceable." I mean, that's basically what we got from that. Las Vegas might be an underdog we'll look at later. But anytime you head into October, if you're talking about underdogs, it takes a strong stomach to walk up to the window and place a bet on these. But we've seen this year, underdogs are where you should be looking along with under. So let's look at a couple that we think might have a little value right now. Carolina going to Chicago. What I saw out of Chicago last week was Caleb Williams, although improving a little bit, still has a long way to go before he's able to take this team and move to the next level. They had a couple long runs. I think that they're still vulnerable, Chicago that is, from an offensive standpoint. And Carolina, listen, I'm not going to put them in the big game at the end, but I do think that this team's still a little bit undervalued after they made the change at quarterback. So let's look at Carolina. Again, tough to walk up to the window and do that, especially at Chicago, but I think there's some value there. Dallas, another team, can't stop the run. This team's been horrible up front, and especially in the box, but I think when you play Pittsburgh, you're able to load the box a little bit more, not worry as much about the down-the-field passing, although Fields has gotten better. I think there's a little value in Dallas as everybody's jumping off that bandwagon. Jerry Jones is landing his helicopter. Let's go ahead and find some value there because, again, underdogs are tough to look at in October, but there is some value. So let's look at Dallas as well.
What do you mean Jerry Jones is landing his helicopter?
Did you not see that?
No.
He went to practice yesterday and came in a helicopter, and everybody's like, all right, here comes the boss. It was embarrassing for everybody, including Jerry Jones.
That's a heck of a rival, though, I guess. All right, we talked about it off the top of the show, celebrating the tall, skinny guys like me, Ted, and one of those rookie quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah, a bunch of those rookie quarterbacks. But the one who's tall and thin, Jayden Daniels, talk about him in just a minute because he might be the MVP of the league through the first quartile of the season. I want to start with Caleb Williams, obviously. And last week, rookie quarterbacks, 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread of the 3 that started. We haven't seen J.J. McCarthy. He's out for the year. We haven't seen Michael Penix for Atlanta yet. And, of course, New England can't really throw Drake May behind that offensive line just yet, or else he's going to get beaten to a pulp the way Jacoby Brissett has been beaten the last couple of weeks. But of the 3 rookie QBs who've been playing, look, Caleb Williams, I tapped the brakes a little bit. Caleb Williams has thrown more interceptions than touchdowns so far this season. Chicago's been fairly adept at scoring non-offensive tees, which has helped them a lot. And their defense has been pretty good. Bo Nix, back-to-back road wins. Last week, he was able to win a game in which he passed for -7 yards in the first half of that ball game. Ugly numbers. Denver's defense, more than Bo Nix, perhaps, responsible for the success there. But Jayden Daniels has been phenomenal through the first 4 weeks of the season. Truly impressive, and Washington, a transformed team.
Historical numbers out of Daniels early in the year.
Yeah, he's been amazing. All right, if you like those player props, 3 low-key guys had nice big bounce-back weeks. Here's Sports Grid with more on that.
Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here, looking at some of the standouts from week 4 and figuring out if those performances will carry over. This first one, bear with us. Courtland Sutton of Denver. You see 3 catches for 60 yards and a score, and you might think that is not some outstanding game. It is when your quarterback only throws for 60 yards, a weird one for Denver. But Sutton has clearly been their main focus, Joe. Do you expect that to continue for this offense?
I do. Bo Nix goes to Courtland Sutton in critical third down situations. He was the main option, and Bo Nix has progressed over back-to-back weeks. They get the win a couple weeks ago over Tampa Bay, 26-7. They grind out another victory with Sutton receiving 60 yards. Look for Courtland Sutton and Bo Nix to build off the last 2 weeks' performance.
Now, we shift to Chicago, where there was pressure on DeAndre Swift to hold down this backfield. We heard Roschon Johnson's name being talked about, and he scored early against L.A., where you wonder, is Swift's job as this team's lead back in doubt? By the end of it, no way, no how. A rushing touchdown and over 150 yards of total offense as Swift played his best game for the Bears. Do you think this can continue?
Absolutely, Kevin. They play Carolina this week. Look for DeAndre Swift to be a main factor, especially in the receiving game. Has great vision. You saw the breakaway run against L.A. to really seal the deal and put them up by 9 points. DeAndre Swift is a main factor if Chicago's going to make the playoffs.
Now, with Sutton and Swift, these performances, they come in victories. This next one did not, but I'm not sure it matters. Justin Fields with one of the best games of his young career. And again, it's the only time he's lost as the Pittsburgh starter. Still the best game he's had for them, in my opinion. 3 total touchdowns, 312 passing yards. Do you think Pittsburgh will let Fields open it up like they did here in this game?
I think they do, and that's what he brings to the table. Versatility and athleticism. You saw him score a touchdown. They almost pulled up the upset, trailing in regards to the second half against Indianapolis. I expect them to build off of last week. Dallas did allow Daniel Jones to throw for 281 yards in that loss. Look for Fields to duplicate last week's performance.
You have been a big believer in Fields, not only when he left college, but throughout his time in the pros where there's been a lot of struggles. What I'll say to your credit, when teams let him throw it, he does have some success. We'll see if it holds against Dallas and everything else that'll play out in Week 5 of the Pro Football Action.
Well, it's the one time Teddy and Jack get to puff out their chests and at least act tough. It's our player prop showdown. See who they are battling over next.
You're watching Beat the Odds, sponsored by Superbook at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino, and powered by Sports Grid.
Well, even birds giggle at their skinny little legs, but no matter, it's Teddy against Jack in our player prop showdown. Today, you guys are debating Aaron Rodgers.
We sure are. Aaron Rodgers over under 225.5 passing yards, and I'm going over the total. Let's start. He's gone over the total each of the last 2 weeks, despite the fact that he's been dealing with ankle problems and leg problems. We got the Jets. We've got New York coming off a loss. Yeah, gangrene coming off a loss. They're underdogs here, which means they could well be playing from behind, need to throw the football. But most importantly, an awful offensive showing last week from New York. And guess what? Ankle problems from the QB. We get to buy low. This is a low number in a game where he's likely to throw the football around a lot. Over the number.
The last time we played anybody that's really good defensively was Tennessee, only had 176 yards. Also, London games typically go lower scoring, and I don't care about his ankle. I need him to turn around and hand the ball off a bunch. So I'm going to go under because I think the last two are a little bit fraudulent in that they end up throwing down the field because they had to. In this spot, it's going to be playing keep away. So I'll go under the total there.
Why was your violin so big? You were playing the world's biggest violin.
It's a cello, actually. I play up here and put it up here.
You can just do this.
It's unorthodox.
Just do that. Anyway, now let's send it over to the guys at Sports Grid.
Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here. Look at some of the stars from week number 4 who could use a bounce back in week 5. We'll begin in the Sunday nighter in Baltimore, where Buffalo's quarterback Josh Allen and the offense really as a whole, Joe, could not get it going. Josh doesn't account for any touchdowns. Under 200 passing yards in this game. A trip to Houston is on deck. Do you expect a bounce back from one of the league's best?
Absolutely, Kevin. When you look at Josh Allen, a tale of 2 games. 2 weeks ago, 263 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interception in the dominant win over Jacksonville. Last week, 180 yards. Didn't really key the main wide receivers. Keon Coleman held without a catch. And I think he bounces back in a big way. Houston, over the past couple of weeks, allowed 4 touchdowns to Sam Darnold. And last week, 2 touchdowns to Trevor Lawrence. Expect Josh Allen to bounce back.
Now, in that same game, Baltimore had a great offensive performance, but it was the ground attack. Derrick Henry, an incredible game that started off with an 87-yard rushing touchdown. But the pass catchers, again, a lot to be desired. Specifically, Zay Flowers, you think back to week 1 in Kansas City, and it seemed like he could have himself a big season. Comes out of this game, 1 grab. 10 yards. Is this what it's going to look like for the Baltimore pass attack when they're playing from in front?
As long as Derrick Henry rushes for 151 yards the way he did 2 weeks ago against Dallas and last week against Buffalo with a $199 on the ground, really set the stage for that victory. I think Zay Flowers will be a secondary option for that offense. Last 2 weeks, 4 receptions, 30 yards. I think he'll build off of last week, but when Derrick Henry was pounding the rock, he doesn't really need to do that much.
And again, it's tough when you're like, man, I wish I was able to get more out of my guy, and the offense played so well. It gives you an idea of how Baltimore wants to play. When we talk about disappointing, though, I'm not sure anything disappointed more than New York's offense against Denver at home, specifically Breece Hall, 10 carries, 4 yards. Braylon Allen outplaying him again.
He is, and it's going to be tough this week against Minnesota, second best rush defense in all the NFL, holding opposing offenses to 75 rushing yards per game and less than 3 yards per carry. Might be difficult treading for Breece Hall this week.
The thing is, we know he is supposed to be a home run hitter. At some point, he is going to hit one of those, a 70-yarder, and it'll be able to cash a lot of those tickets. We'll keep eyes on all these guys throughout with you here on Sports Grid.
All right, thanks, guys. So Teddy nailed his best bet last week. As for Jack, he tried. See who they like this week. Best bets are next. All right, welcome back to Beat the Odds. So you've heard the saying, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So there's hope for you, Jack.
Okay,
that is just not accurate. 18-8 over 2 years. I'm making a lot of money for our people.
Okay, relax. Every show. Teddy, what's your best bet?
Yeah, but that's really important to say is relax, because winning or losing, whether you're doing great or doing terrible, you always want to breathe and reset before the new weeks. And of course, we cashed a total last week. Let's come right back with another total this week. Now, last week, we saw 2 overs on Monday night. That's been the exception rather than the rule. Primetime games have been trending under. We're going to look for KC and New Orleans to stay under the total, 43 on Monday night. Look, KC, we know how good this defense is, and we know how banged up their receiving core is. They're an under team right now. They've only played 5 overs in their last 17 ball games. New Orleans started out the season with this high-flying offense. Not the last 2 games. Offensive line injuries have resulted in not much downfield passing. It's all dink and dunk right now. Look for a low-scoring affair on Monday night that stays under the total.
Under's been my bread and butter with Kansas City, exactly. Thought maybe something was stuck. We need a Heimlich over there. Now you got me pulling against Kansas City, by the way. I'm just going to let you know. I'm sorry, you've done that. Let me give you one that doesn't have to do with that game. I think Houston's is still a little bit overvalued. What you have during the course of a professional football season, you have some 3 or 4 bad games, 3 or 4 good games, better than they're supposed to be, and every other game's kind of in the middle. I think we saw last week from Buffalo, that was one of their 2 or 3 bad games against a bad matchup. Houston does not present the same amount of problems. I think Buffalo goes on the road and gets right here in an overrated Houston team. Even with some of their losses, people still think that they've got that ego that we had preseason is taking us up. So I will play Buffalo minus the points on the road.
All right. You guys have fun watching football this weekend. We'll see you next week for Beat the Odds.